Maybe he should have just listened. Maybe he could have been more compliant. Maybe he shouldn't have resisted. It's easy to ask these questions about the guy in the handcuffs. It's harder to ask them about the guy with the badge. But this changed for me when Chris called me, when he told me Jesus was in trouble. Chris Hoke calls himself a gang pastor. He's friends with men in solitary confinement. He connects open-minded churches with incarcerated folks, so when they get out, they'll have community and jobs. And on July 1st, Chris asked me if I could help him with Jesus. Jesus is a dad with 2 kids. He'd been out of prison for several months, working a job, and Jesus had just bought a new iPhone, but then he lost it. Jesus and his girlfriend used the Find My Phone app to track his missing phone to a gas station in Marysville, Washington. Jesus approached the only woman in the parking lot. She was right on top of the app's blue pulsing dot. Jesus insisted that she give his phone back. That's when the Marysville police showed up. Jesus assumed they were there to help him recover his iPhone, but they were not there to recover his iPhone. Jesus ended up in the back of a cop car with multiple broken ribs, and the police wanted to give him a felony for resisting arrest. 6 months after the incident, as Jesus faced 5 years to life in prison for assault on an officer, that's when Chris Hoke called me. Chris had done a public information request and got a video from the gas station. Chris wanted me to help him add captions to the video, to pause and repeat certain parts, to slow it all down. He hoped it might help at Jesus' trial. I watched the video. I watched it over and over again as I added captions and froze certain parts in time. I watched 2 police officers yelling at Jesus, strutting up to Jesus, grabbing Jesus, punching some more, kneeing him in the stomach, and then, when he was pinned down on the gas station pavement, tasing him and kneeing him in the back. And then I watched an officer kneel on Jesus' neck, the same way they did with George Floyd. The more I watched it, the more I began thinking of myself, of being a dad. I mean, I've never hit my kids, we don't even spank, but when my boys were toddlers and they would have a breakdown in public, when they were throwing wood chips all over the playground, something would change in my body. Chemicals would flood through me and my heart rate would go up. The more out of control the kids got, the more out of control I felt. I remember spitting out ultimatums, dragging my kids back into the car, pushing their little bodies into their car seats and trying to get their buckles closed before they could arch their backs and slide down to the floor. I needed to bring control to the situation and to do it right now. Those feelings. I first learned about this idea from my counselor. She recommended Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's research. You've probably heard of this stuff, it's pretty hot right now. It's how our body has an internal threat response system. When we sense danger, the rational and relational parts of our brain tap out for a bit, and instinctual parts of our brain kick in and flood our bodies with adrenaline and all sorts of chemicals. It's what compels us to freeze, to run, or to fight. It's what gives us the strength and stupidity to punch a bear. But what's crazy is it doesn't take a bear to trigger our threat response system. It can get turned on by almost anything. Have you ever noticed what happens in your body with your breath, the rush of chemicals, when your kids talk back to you, when your boss calls you into their office, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when you read something that challenges your worldview, when you lose control of a situation? What do you feel in your chest, in your limbs, in your gut, in your breath? I think the Marysville police and I had shared a similar experience. Something made some part of us feel threatened. Maybe it was our respect or ego or power. We started to feel out of control inside, and so we had to take control of the situation outside by force, no matter what the cost. Now here's the eerie part in both situations. Who was really under a greater threat of danger? Me or my kids? The cops or Jesus? Out on the playground, the last thing my kids needed when they were feeling out of control was an out of control dad. They needed a calm and patient father who didn't care about ultimatums or schedules or what people thought, as much as connection. And the last thing Jesus needed when he was trying to recover a stolen phone was officers escalating the situation, pressing him into silence, intimidating him. What Jesus needed was someone calm, in full control of themselves, someone with the ability to be patient, able to listen to the problem, to help him get his phone back. The officers and I, we didn't make rational decisions. We rode the wave of chemicals. We took control like a man, like the kind of man we thought we had to be. We could be stuck, frozen, or fighting. But the good news is we don't have to be. I've been trying new things. My counselor and my partner have been helping me with this. I've been learning to listen to my body, breathing, trying contemplative practices, notice my emotions and sensations before they get too strong. I've been learning to evaluate whether things are actually threats or just perceptions based on experience, culture, and history. Basically, I've been learning to slow everything down. So what about law enforcement? When the officers arrived at the scene, they didn't look Jesus up. They knew nothing of his background, good or bad. They just went after him. It would be easy to say that these two officers were outliers, but that's just not the case. Jesus's public defender commented that this is normal, this happens every day. He told Chris that when prosecutors see this, even juries, all they see is someone who's resisting arrest, not fully submitting to force. So whatever the cops do after that is just their job. And you know what? After all the movies I've seen, it almost looked normal to me too. The officers look badass. They're scrappy and strong, taking down the bad guy. Because the guy they're beating up must have done something real bad, right? But something changes when you pause the video, slow it down, when you understand the real story of Jesus and what was going on. It gives you time to reconsider assumptions about why force is used and who it's used against. Chris sent our annotated video of the incident to the public defender, Jesus's attorney. He brought it to the prosecutor. The police had asked for a felony charge of assault on an officer, and the prosecutors, who work with police like this in every county in America, were seeking exactly that, a felony that when added to Jesus's past charges from the lifestyle he'd left, would put him in prison from 5 years to life. But as I understand it, after the prosecutors watched the video that Chris had found, both in its entirety and our annotated version, they changed their minds. They agreed to drastically reduce the charges. If slowing down and reconsidering what happened in the video helps Snohomish County prosecutors slow down and reconsider the situation, if that's what it took for leadership to realize that this is not what normal should look like, what if we all did this personally and in our institutions? How do we slow down both our bodies and our systems, our internal tapes and our surveillance tapes? Could this practice help us re-examine what makes our society feel threatened, what we want normal to look like, what kind of authority we want in power in our communities, what kind of presence do we want to fund? Chris sent me an audio recording from the sentencing just last week, where he sat in court with Jesus's family several rows back. Before the judge agreed to the reduced charges and time served, she told Jesus it was up to him to work on his temper, his anger problem.
And you have a responsibility to yourself, to everybody who's here who loves you, to this community, to figure this out and to stop.
Now here's the thing. Jesus has been working with Chris and others in his life for several years now, admitting he has work to do. The police behavior was not mentioned in court. Are they ever asked to work on their temper, their anger problems? Jesus was released days ago to loved ones, to owning the rest of his future. Chris tells me Jesus and he took a walk that first night home under the late summer light and a half moon. He tells me Jesus is picking up on the same questions about his own parenting, his past, and the work of turning his life around. Can we as a culture do the same? Jesus is working to unlearn his old normal and change his future. Can we, a generation of parents, police, men with any kind of power over others, do the same? Can we follow Jesus' lead?
And you have a responsibility to yourself, to everybody who's here who loves you, to this community, to figure this out and to stop.